2:31, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us, everybody. My name is Dana J. I'm with the Media Relations team at Henry Ford Health System, and I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Singh and Dr. Greenberg, who made some pretty stunning discoveries when it comes to an iPhone 12. Doctors, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. I am going to ask you to introduce yourself, say and spell your name for our friends in the media so that we know that they are spelling it and pronouncing it correctly. And Dr. Singh, you can go first.
Okay, all righty. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to the media. My name is Gurjit Singh, G-U-R-J-I-T, last name Singh, S-I-N-G-H. I'm a senior staff cardiac electrophysiologist at Henry Ford Hospital.
Very good. And Dr. Greenberg?
Sure. My name's Joshua Greenberg, Joshua Greenberg. I'm one of the HeartRhythm fellows working under Dr. Singh at Henry Ford here.
All right, very good. And Dr. Singh, go ahead with your presentation. Thank you so much.
So we made this discovery last month, and the story starts with Dr. Greenberg. He bought an iPhone 12 Pro, and as usual, he reads the manuals in quite details, and he made this discovery that the phone contains a magnet inside the phone on the back side, which is designed for making the phone rapidly charge. It's called a MagSafe capability. So this helps in aligning the charger to the iPhone, and then the charger can push the power into the phone very fast. So he came to me and saying that there is some magnets in there, and we need to test, or we need to figure out if these magnets are strong enough that they can interact with cardiac implantable devices. So just to give a little background, so when we talk about cardiac implantable devices, so we're talking about either a pacemaker or a defibrillator. So I'm going to give a brief overview about these two devices, as there is a lot of misnomer and a lot of confusion out there in the public, after our article got published. So here in my hand, I'm holding a pacemaker in my right hand and a defibrillator in the left hand. So as you can see, a pacemaker is a smaller unit and a defibrillator is a bigger unit. A pacemaker is designed to pace the heart. So when patients have a slow heart rhythm and their hearts are either slow or they cannot beat on their own, a pacemaker supplies the electrical energy for the heart muscle to beat. In comparison, a defibrillator is a bigger device and a device designed to shock the heart. It delivers an electric shock to the heart if a patient's rhythm goes out of sync into a fast, deadly rhythm called ventricular tachycardia or ventricular fibrillation. So a defibrillator detects the rhythm and shocks and brings the patient back to life. So with that background, these devices have a safety magnetic switch, which were designed many, many years ago, so that if in a situation where, let's say, a defibrillator is not working properly, for some reason it keeps shocking the patient because of the leads in the defibrillator are fractured or there's a device malfunction, anybody can put an external magnet of enough strength, and if you bring it close to the device, it will turn off the defibrillator from shocking the patient. Something similar happens to the pacemaker, but when a magnet is applied to a pacemaker, it causes the pacemaker to start pacing the heart asynchronously, which means that regardless of what's patient's heart rhythm, if it's there or no, it will start delivering the electrical impulses. So with that background, we decided we're going to test this iPhone 12 Pro to see if it can do the same job as any other externally applied magnet. So after proper approvals and everything, we tested on a patient. We brought the iPhone pretty much very close to the chest. We kept it on the patient's defibrillator over the skin and the dressing, and we immediately discovered that the iPhone has deactivated the defibrillator, which was a surprise to us, as our hypothesis was that the magnet may not be strong enough. And we reproduced these results multiple times, and every time the iPhone was brought in close to the defibrillator was deactivated. We have not tested any pacemaker. As of now, we are in the process of getting approvals and conducting a study. We'll be testing the pacemakers as well as other defibrillators. Dr. Green?
Yeah, so what Dr. Singh said, our patients always wonder what they can and cannot do when they get a pacemaker or defibrillator. There's a lot of misinformation out there. The most common thing we hear is, oh, I if I get a defibrillator, I can't be close to a microwave, or I can't be close to any type of magnet. So where this really came from is that if you go to where we put these pacemakers and defibrillators in, we have magnets all over the place. We have them stuck to the wall. In case something happens and we want to rapidly turn these devices off, you can put a magnet right on top of the device. And when I first was reading about the new iPhone, they said the magnet was so strong, you could actually attach it to your refrigerator. So I'm thinking, if this thing's strong enough to attach to a refrigerator, I wonder what it would do to a potential device. Where it comes in is that I unfortunately, like a lot of our patients, put my phone in my front pocket, and I carry my phone like that. And, if you were to have a defibrillator, that would be right where the defibrillator was located. Traditionally, these companies have told you, well, you shouldn't put a phone within 6 centimeters of the device, sometimes even 12 centimeters. But in real world practice, patients often don't do that. A convenient place to carry a phone is in a front pocket. So what our findings really kind of reinforce is the importance of how this new technology can potentially affect devices. And in our case, putting an iPhone in your pocket with an ICD, a defibrillator, can potentially stop it from delivering therapies and prevent you from getting a life-saving shock. So it's an important finding for the.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so there is already recommendations from all the device companies and various authorities that any phones should be kept at least 6 inches away from an implantable device. Now that information comes from the radio frequency codes and things like that. So it's the 6 inches recommendation is already there, but hopefully with our study publication, we are bringing it to everybody's attention that, that 6 inches recommendation should be taken very seriously. Now, I'm just going to clarify one situation. Just because you're keeping your iPhone into your pocket is not that the iPhone is going to kill you, as I've seen some Twitters and some other news information. You remember, you have to be in the deadly rhythm at the time when the iPhone is sitting close to your ICD. So the chances of those things are low, but they are potentially can happen.
And another thing to clarify is just because you have a pacemaker, putting your iPhone close will not cause the pacemaker to shut off. And we have not tested that, but as Dr. Singh said, a magnet in a pacemaker typically just causes the pacemaker no longer to sense the patient's underlying heart rate and just pace without sensing. So it won't turn.
But with that said, if a magnet is placed on a pacemaker, as I said, the pacemaker will start pacing the heart regardless of patient's heart rhythm. There's a very rare chance that forced pacing will interact with the heart's own beats and can bring out a fast, deadly rhythm, which can be potentially lethal. It is well reported. It's a very rare phenomenon, but it is possible. Again, we have not tested any pacemakers, so we don't know if the iPhone 12 can do the same thing with a pacemaker.
And beyond just iPhones, a significant number of commercial devices now are routinely using magnets and very quite powerful neodymium magnets. And with that, patients have to be aware that there's the potential for increased interaction with medical devices moving forward. And I think it's just an important reinforcement of that fact.
Yeah, we are concerned because it's not only iPhone, any third-party magnetic cases, which can go on any phone, Android phones or iPhones, which are likely stronger magnets, potentially will do the same thing. Again, our study will include some of those devices, so more data to come.
Very interesting stuff. And so obviously a lot more research to come from your team, Drs. Greenberg and Dr. Singh. At this point, if you don't have anything else to add, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions and answers from our friends in the news media. Guys, generally the best way to do this is for you to put your questions in the chat. I'll go ahead and call on you individually. So if you could go ahead and do that for me. Or raise your hand, but generally I see the chats first. So while I'm waiting for questions, doctors, one of the things you mentioned was that in general, you're supposed to leave 6 centimeters between one of these devices and your phone. How often do you find your patients do that? Or do they generally respect that boundary, or is it something you have to remind them regularly? And Karen, I see your question. You'll be after this response.
Yeah, so Dana, yeah, that's the 6 inches is the recommendation
Thank you.
from the device company. So we were supposed to tell patients back in the day, many years ago, this was a common theme, but over the years, the 6 inches recommendation has looked into seriously. But hopefully with our finding, with the showing that we can turn off a defibrillator, hopefully people will start taking this seriously. And hopefully our message is that, all patients with implantable devices, regardless of what phones or what devices they have, they should just keep 6 inches away from their implanted sites.
Very good. And Karen Buffard has a question. Karen, I'm opening your mic and you can go ahead and ask your question yourself.
Thank you. I'm just wondering why you did not test it on pacemakers, especially since aren't pacemakers a lot more common than defibrillators?
A good question, Karen. Yeah, so we're trying to get all those approvals. We tested only one patient, so we are in the process of getting approvals to test a different, multiple patients with different pacemakers from different companies. And what we believe, because of the defibrillator carries more potential risk, as we said, it can turn off the therapies, and if you go into a daily rhythm, defibrillator will not work, which we felt had more precedence. But again, we will be collecting data shortly on pacemakers as well.
Okay, thanks, Karen. And I see a question from Saima, and then Kristen will be after that. And folks, if you could just introduce yourselves as well to the doctors and let them know which outlet you're with. And Saima, I'll go ahead and unmute you. Go ahead.
Great. Hi, Saima Chowdhury with WXYZ TV here in Detroit. I wanted to ask just kind of how surprised were you when you found out that the iPhone has such a strong magnet? I mean, you said you had some curiosity, but what was your initial reaction when you found out that it's strong enough to mess with these medical devices?
Yes, Saima. So thanks for the question. Yeah, we were quite surprised. As I mentioned, our hypothesis was that maybe the magnet is not strong enough to do any interaction, but we were surprised and amazed. And the reason we were surprised because the amount of iPhones or in general phones over there and the amount of devices in the public, annually 300,000 devices are implanted, which includes 100,000 defibrillators and 200,000 pacemakers. So because of that finding and keeping the phone close to the pocket, that's what amazed us. But we were quite surprised with the finding.
Right, very good. And Kristen, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, and you can go ahead and ask your questions.
Thanks very much. Hi, I'm Kristen Shamus with the Detroit Free Press. I'm curious about a couple of different things. One is, can these magnets also affect other magnetic devices, such as cochlear implants? And then my second set of questions, is just whether Apple and the FDA have been in communication with Henry Ford about your findings and what they said.
Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, so we don't know about the cochlear implants. I know the neurostimulation community is also looking into these iPhone and other magnetic devices interaction, but I'm not aware of any interaction as of now. And to answer your second question regarding Apple and FDA, yes, we have been in communication with both with Apple and FDA. And FDA is also conducting independent lab testing with phones and various devices.
Okay, folks, once again, if you have any questions, if you can go ahead and put them in the chat for me, I'll go ahead and call on you in the order in which I see them to the best of my ability. And I will take this opportunity right now to let you know that we sent a follow-up press release to you all that has links to both video and photos of demonstrations of this idiosyncrasy with the iPhone and the defibrillator. So, okay, I see a question from Andrew and Victor. So we'll go with Andrew first. Let me go ahead and unmute you, and you can go ahead and ask your question. And Victor, I'll come to you next.
Thank you very much. Andrew Humphrey, WDIV in Detroit. And doctors, did the study on on defibrillators, did they go through the proper approvals that you are now seeking for the pacemaker study?
Yes, Andrew. Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so all studies like this go through a institutional review board that makes sure that the risks and benefits of the study are adequate, and that all our studies did go through the institutional review board and were approved as ethical research by our institution.
And if you could clarify also, is this the iPhone 12 in the history of wireless, these mobile phones, is this the first study that you've done of its kind for phones that have magnets in them or use magnets to charge wirelessly?
Yeah, so Apple uses a novel MagSafe feature, which is new for the iPhone 12 that hasn't been present in prior generations. Previous studies looking at phones without magnets has actually shown that the interaction is quite minimal, even within the 6-inch distance. So to my knowledge, a magnet array, such as what's in the most recent iPhone, is not present in another phone at this time.
And Andrew, besides the phone, there are some other publications coming out now since our publication where people have been testing Apple Watch, fitness trackers, magnets. So there have been some case reports where other devices other than phones have been able to interact with pacemakers and defibrillators.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, and Victor, you should be unmuted at this point. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Right, thanks a lot. Victor Williams here with WDIV also. And so we know there's a concern for the future of patients with these devices as technology furthers, but is there any chance of these implantable devices changing to try and, I guess, adjust with the technology that's now coming out that's going to be very, very common soon?
Thanks, Victor. That's a great question. So I'm sure all the communities, the standard organizations, FDA and various device companies are looking into this information. All I can tell you from what we have experienced, the interaction of these phones with the devices is very close. So FDA and other communities are looking into the exact distances, how far away from the patient's skin or from a device that the magnet will not interact. Now, as we know from physics, the magnetic effect on anything changes with the distance. As you start going away from a device, the magnetic field loses its strength. So more data to come from all these, authorities, but we believe within 1 centimeter of the device, the iPhones can deactivate, but beyond 1 centimeter distance, we believe the magnetic field will be less strong and will not interact. But if our paper or our findings changes the industry on either side, on the Apple side or the device companies, only time will tell.
Thank you, Dr. Singh and Dr. Greenberg. Folks, if you have any other questions, go ahead and get them in the chat for me. Otherwise, it looks like I got to everybody who had raised a question. Again, I'll remind you that we sent you a follow-up press release with links to video and photos of demonstrations of what actually can happen. And Andrew, looks like you have another question, so go ahead and go right ahead.
Thank you. And I see that Karen also posted a question just
Thank
before
you.
I did, just to alert you.
Okay, Karen, you're next.
And again, Andrew Humphrey, WDIV. So doctors, bottom line, what advice do you have for current and future patients who have a defibrillator or may need one in the future, or have a pace? Let's break it down into 2 categories: who have a defibrillator since you did the study on it, or may get one in the future, and patients who may either have a pacemaker or may get a pacemaker in the future. What advice do you have for them? 1, if they already own an iPhone 12, or 2, if they plan to purchase an iPhone 12?
Yes, our advice will go with the general recommendation, and which I believe all the authorities, including FDA and everybody, probably will agree with, that all patients with implantable devices, be it pacemakers or defibrillator, should keep their iPhones or any phones with magnetic cases at least 6 inches away from their implantable devices. Yeah, just carrying a phone itself is not going to be harmful unless it's very close to the defibrillator. So I hope the message goes out to the public that, the 6-inch distance is probably the safest distance to keep these devices away.
Okay, and Karen, go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to double check. Did you say that that you only tested this on one patient?
Yes,
And-
yes. Yeah, so I see your question. Yeah, so we tested on one patient, but what we have done since then is we have tested what we call ex vivo. So we have explanted devices, defibrillators, and we have tested, from different companies. But because we want to test multiple patients with different devices, so we are going through the proper channel of, getting it approved. And once we have the study authorization, then we will start enrolling patients and test pacemakers and defibrillators.
Okay, and then do you
This is a
know,
repeatable effect, though. It's not just one patient. We do see these findings quite similarly. The devices do have all similar switches. The original observation was in one patient, but we are continuing to, refine that both with our future studies and as well as outside of patients.
okay, thank you. And then I'm wondering if there have been any reports to the FDA or any other places about adverse events being caused by this problem.
So far, we are not aware of any publications or any reports directly from the iPhone causing any harm to a patient per se. I'm not aware of any of those.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat, so I'm gonna do a last call for questions. Okay, Andrew is asking, have you talked to Apple and what has their response been?
All I can tell you, when it's supposed to be confidential, but when I talked to them, they just wanted to know how we did the study and what our future goals will be, which I just shared with all of you.
Okay. Andrew, if you have any more questions, go ahead and pipe up. Anybody else too? I don't want to cut anybody off. I just also don't want to keep you all longer than I need to. All right, last call for questions, going once, going twice. All right, so Dr. Singh and Dr. Greenberg, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Everybody in the press, thank you for joining us. And if there's anything else that we can do for you, please do reach out via the contact information that's in the press releases that you received. And everybody have a great afternoon.
You too, thanks.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you.